thank you very much for this opportunity. I am really, very thankful for AIBPM for hosting such a wonderful conferences and making young scholars, academicians together to discuss, about academia. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Today I am going to present about my recently published book with Springer by the title Financial Inclusion Schemes in India. I will put some light that what is happening in India with respect to financial inclusion and why financial inclusion is important. So, and the book description, what this book is all about, I will discuss in this slide that this book talks about two vulnerable groups who are, excluded from the financial inclusion, who are financially excluded. These two vulnerable groups are slum dwellers and beggars. Actually, this study, this book, is from my PhD, course, which I have, on which I have done my PhD. So in this study, I have tried to analyze financial inclusion index. In that financial inclusion index, I tried to understand what is penetration, what is availability and usage. I have used the data set from 2006 to 2020, and the data has been taken from the World Bank. Similarly, I have tried to try to examine the financial inclusion policies with respect to India. What are the supporting policies which India has given by time? And I have tried to, take those policies which has been implemented after 2014. I try to understand what has happened to financial inclusion after 2014 onwards. So I have used questionnaire, I have used sampling, techniques, simple random and stratified random sampling for these two vulnerable groups. This book highlights the difference between financial access and financial non-access of the household respondents in capturing the impact of financial inclusion on their socio-economic conditions and financial behavior. This book also highlighted the performance of financial inclusion index of these vulnerable populations that are slum dwellers and beggars by examining the recent financial inclusion scheme which has been implemented after 2014. The overall findings of this book is that these schemes are having very limited impact on these vulnerable populations. What government is claiming at the ground, they are not grounded in the reality. There is a huge gap. So this book demonstrated that these programs have a negligible effect on life deprived people. Those are slum dwellers and beggars. This book is unique in presenting the financial inclusion position of India while analyzing the access and impact pattern of financial inclusion schemes of such disadvantaged population. So this book will be, very interesting for academia, policymakers, and society at large. This is a brief about the book, as we are having limited time, but I will, try to make, greater emphasis. What are the takeaways of this book? So this book is actually, divided into 7 chapters. The first chapter is introduction. The second chapter is discussing theories and their relevance with respect to financial inclusion. The third chapter is impact of financial inclusion and status of financial inclusion in India. This chapter is totally based on the secondary data. The fourth chapter is social economic concerns and pattern of access and non-access in recent financial inclusion schemes to poorest of the poor. The fifth chapter discusses about these recent financial inclusion schemes which has been taking place in India and try to understand how these schemes have changed the socio-economic status of these vulnerable poor. Lastly, the sixth chapter, which is the main chapter, it discusses impact on socio-economic and financial behavior. And the seventh chapter is giving us the policy recommendations, how these policies can be improved. So without wasting my time, I will go to the chapter one. Chapter one just gives about literature, methodology, discuss the scope of the problem. So are my slides are visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So research questions. What are the research questions which I have taken in this study? I have tried to understand what financial inclusion is all about. What do we mean by financial inclusion? Then the second counter question, I have tried to understand how to measure this financial inclusion. Then the third very important question is I have tried to understand what is the position of the financial inclusion in India. And the fourth question I have tried to understand or answer, can we achieve 100% financial inclusion? Is it possible or not? Then the fifth question is, how is financial access among slum dwellers and beggars in India? To check how inclusive are recent financial inclusion. And these are the core objectives I have already discussed. Let me skip this. So then the scope of this book, scope of this study. In India, after 1947, India got independence. From that very time, we are having so many thousands and thousands of welfare programs and schemes to alleviate the problem of poverty, to help the marginalized, population, to lower down the poverty rates. This study is one of the unique studies because it is trying to explore, it has tried to explore two marginal urban groups who are slum dwellers and beggars who have been excluded by the policymakers and government till date. So this study tried to understand, tried to investigate five major policies which government of India has implemented. That is Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, Mudra Yojana, PMSBY Yojana, PMJJBY Yojana, and PM. These all schemes are related to financial inclusion to check the performance with respect to these urban vulnerable groups who are slum dwellers, who are beggars. This study also investigates what is the difference between supply and demand constraints of these policies, what these policies and schemes are giving as a supply, but what the demand of these vulnerable groups is there. So this is the scope of this study. Then I have made this book with respect to three core objectives. The first objective is I have tried to understand those people who are having financial inclusion access and those who are not having financial inclusion access. What is their status? And then the second counter objective of the book is that I have tried to understand socio-economic conditions of these poor people with respect to financial inclusion scheme. Then the third was what is the impact of these schemes on these people. So the methodology, I will, briefly explain what methods and techniques I have used in my methodology. This study was based on both primary and secondary data. I have used both qualitative and quantitative data. I have used two sampling techniques, simple random sampling in case of beggars and stratified random sampling in case of slum dweller. The data collection has been, collected through questionnaire, study area where Lucknow city and Calcutta city, two popular cities of India. The sample population, beggars and slum dwellers. Sources of data has been taken from field survey, RBI, Reserve Bank of India, and World Bank. Research methods and techniques which I have used. I have used descriptive statistics, histogram, pie chart, chi-square test. I have constructed financial inclusion index, financial literacy index, financial attitude index, financial knowledge index, and I have used regression models, dummy regression models, and MANOVA models. So these are the locations how I have chosen the sample size. So then the second chapter it is discussing about theories of financial inclusion. This chapter is actually divided into four sections, and it discusses about income, saving, and other determining factors, how these vulnerable populations are determined on these key variables. The section two talks about individual perspective and their relevance of the financial inclusion. That is how an individual deals with financial inclusion. The third section discusses about sociological perspective, and fourth chapter draws on light on institutional factors. The keywords of this chapter is institutional perspective, income savings, sociological perspective, and institutional factor. So, what is the conclusion of this second chapter? This chapter discusses about that poor people are saving very less. It has been explained by theoretically. Why they are saving less? Because of socio-economic and psychological and institutional factors. Institutional factors because there is supply mismatch. Institutions are giving some policy, but it is not relevant as per the demands of this vulnerable population. Financial education and financial incentives can help these poor people to save more. Institutional exclusion is one of the problems because banks are having hardcore rules and regulations, which these very poor people are not able to, able to follow. And these poor people are always remaining in the poverty trap because of the institutional exclusion. Having behavior defined by socio-economic conditions as well as institutional barrier. So therefore, these people, when they see these policies and schemes that they are not, as per their demands, they are discouraged to, be participate in finance. So then the third chapter, it discusses the secondary data, position, macro level position of overall India. This data has been taken from Reserve Bank of India from 2005 to 2006 and World Bank. I have tried to, segregate this data into two domains from 2005 to 2006 to 2014. I have tried to understand what has happened before 2014 and what has happened after 2014 onwards. Because after 2014 onwards, these five bunch of financial inclusion schemes has been implemented, especially for the vulnerable and financially excluded populations to help them to elevate their poverty. For this, I have used dummy regression model to understand what is the impact of this scheme. So this is overall about this chapter. I have used financial inclusion index, which has used by Mandana Sharma, very famous, academician. Then by implementing this financial inclusion index, what I found that uh, yeah, India is having the financial inclusion at the position of the first level, 0.0 to 0.4. It indicates low financial inclusion. After that, I have used this dummy regression model. This section, identifies that from 2006 to 2000 onwards. So what I found from this model, this is the model regression model. I have tried to understand high index of financial inclusion, how it is, reflecting overall performance between these 2 years. So I found only 11% of improvement in financial inclusion index. So it is a positive index. So the output results of this regression model shows that financial inclusion is having 11% change after 2014 onwards because of these policies. But then I have raised a question that is it really possible to have a big improvement in financial inclusion index due to all this scheme? To answer this question, I have taken this question in the next chapter. So as time is limited, I will give you a brief sketch of all the chapters. The chapter 4 then it discusses about socio-economic conditions of these vulnerable populations. The objective of this chapter was to check those who are having access to financial inclusion, how their socio-economic conditions are, and those who do not have financial inclusion access, how their socio-economic conditions are. So we try to understand the socio-economic background, how it is explaining financial access, and how it is not explaining the financial access. The findings of this chapter uh, has shown that those who are having access, they are better in socio-economic conditions. So let me take you to the model. We have used hypothesis testing. If you try to, look at this, slide. So I have seen that only two variables, gender and occupation, are not significant variables in determining the financial access. The rest, all these variables, education, having documents to open the bank account, age of a person, income of a person, and economic status of the person, they are highly significant and playing important role to have financial access. So I have used it here, dummy this, but I have used it here binary logistic regression model. I try to understand that how this access and non-access is explaining these, demographic variables, gender, education, occupation, income, cost, and document. So the results are same as in the hypothesis testing of, that gender and occupation are insignificant. Rest all these variables are playing significant role in having the access. So, what are the findings from this model? That banking access among slum dwellers, the slum population is only 17%, and beggars they are least having banking account. So these are the reasons. Let us skip it and let us move to further. So the conclusion of this chapter are that poor people are not indifferent in comparison to other social groups, which means that poor people are having demands and desires just like normal middle income family groups. Poor people also want their children to get better education. They also dream like us. They want good houses. They want good clothes. They want have a luxurious life, just like other people are having. They dream about good food. They should then, therefore, government should support them need-based financial products as per their circumstances. They need overall development. They need banking infrastructure developed to provide them financial products as at a sustainable rate to support them as per their poverty. What is the problem in the banking system? They are providing the banking products, and those banking products are not reliable to these vulnerable groups. They need something unique, something different. They need, for example, loan of 100 rupee, but it is not available with the bank. So therefore, these are the some take out away of this point. Then the core chapter, financial inclusion schemes and how it has changed its socio-economic conditions of these vulnerable poor. This chapter discusses all about it. So in this chapter, we have constructed certain indexes like financial inclusion index, socio-economic index, financial behavior index, financial attitude index, financial knowledge index. Then we have used it in this very chapter two regression model to check the statistical inferences. The overall findings of this chapter is shows that financial inclusion is poised to impact on socio-economic conditions of the people, and financial inclusion is not limited to only bank account. So let me go quickly to this hypothesis testing. If you try to look here, that this Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana PMJDY, because people are mostly from outside India. This is the short form PMJDY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. It is a scheme which guarantees free of cost bank account to the vulnerable population, especially they are targeting the women. So here we are trying to understand that there is not any significant change in socio-economic conditions of these poor people after implementation of PMJDY. So what we have understood that how these socio-economic variables is explaining having this Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. These red three bullets, occupation, persons with disability, and assets of the household, they do not play any role to have this Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan account, free of cost account or zero-based account. Rest all these education, income, type of house, drinking water facility, and other these socio-economic conditions, they are playing significant role to have this bank account. So sorry. So I have pushed constructed socio-economic index. It is based on 13 variables. If you try to look at here, it is based on 13 variables. I have taken the minima and maxima score. After that, I have I have developed this this index. So from this index, what are the results? That the slum dwellers in both the cities, they record only 57% of this their socio-economic condition. Their socio-economic index is 57%. Similarly, the other. So I will skip it because time is very limited. I have to cover much more things. Then I have used this regression model. I have tried to look how socio-economic index is explaining having a bank account, banking access. So the results are that it explains having a bank account explains or plays a role. It explains the socio-economic conditions by 6%. Those who are having bank account, it impacts almost 6% in their socio-economic conditions. So then I have tried to calculate financial inclusion and financial literacy. Here I have taken three questions. On the basis of these three questions, I have calculated this financial literacy index. So the overall result shows that the financial attitude of these people is very less, 0.98. So it means less than 1%. Then I have calculated financial behavior with respect to four questions I have asked here. So let me skip it quickly because we have to move to cover. Then financial knowledge index. These are the parameters of financial inclusion. Then I have in overall I have consolidated the financial literacy index. On the basis of financial literacy index, I have clubbed financial attitude, financial knowledge, and financial behavior. So the financial literacy index in a collective approach of attitude, behavior, and knowledge, it represents 68%, which means 0.3832 per 2% are irrational in financial behavior. They do not know the sorry, they do not know the real sense of this money management, financial inclusion, its usages, awareness, and so on. So they are irrational towards financial decisions. Then I have used again the model how financial inclusion index is explaining financial inclusion index. So under this model, so the results are that it is explaining negatively financial inclusion index is explaining negatively the socioeconomic index. So here the critical question raises that in the initial chapter, I was explaining that financial access is playing significant role to determine the socioeconomic conditions, but here it is vice versa. To answer this, question, I will, discuss it that as these populations are vulnerable, why this why it has happened against, it has happened against because these populations are having hardly bank account, and bank account hardly determines the financial inclusion index. Financial inclusion index is the name of a spectrum of financial services. It doesn't belong only to have a bank account. So therefore it plays a negative, it shows a negative relationship between having this financial access with respect to socioeconomic conditions with respect to these populations. It is not about the general population of the India. Then the sixth chapter, it tries to explain that what is the impact of these schemes on socio-economic and financial inclusion models. We have tried to understand the income and expenditure mismatch of these vulnerable populations with respect to those who are having access and those who do not have access. Then we have used the MANOVA model. As time is very short, let me go to the discussion only. So I will try to. It is very important section. I will try to make you understand that how these people are suffering. I have tried to understand that what is their income and what is their expenditure. Are they meeting their income and expenditure? So in general, these populations are lacking income and expenditure mismatch. Wait one. Sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah. Yeah, so I have tried to generate. So I have found that these slum dwellers, they are lacking almost 25% of their income to fulfill their expenditures. Then in the next, I have tried to understand those who are having financial inclusion access and those who are do not have financial access, how they are different each other. Those who are having financial access, they lack only 24% of their income to fulfill their expenditure. And those who do not have access, they lack almost 25%. So then in case of beggars, they lack almost 38%. They lack 38% of their income to fulfill their expenditure. So similarly, access and non-access, so minus 28% and 38%. So it shows the impact that these people are lacking their basic income to fulfill their basic expenditures like bread, butter, and so on. Then I have used chi-square test. Now let me finish in few seconds. I have used binary logistic regression. I have used the model, MANOVA model. So before going to the MANOVA model, I have used financial access index. I have used the financial access index, which is composite of four questions. Four questions I have asked. Then I have taken the minima and maxima. So on the basis of this technique, then I have used this multivariate analysis model in which I am having three dependent variables: financial behavior, annual income, and annual expenditure. And financial access is independent variable. So the findings of this study: financial access has shown a positive relationship with income. Those who are having financial access are bound to have better income group. Financial access holders. So is there any problem? Hello, am I having time or there is some,
No, no. Please, maybe. The
Yeah,
modera
in print.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Can mute some of your speakers.
Yeah, financial access has having shown a positive relationship with income. Those who are having access, they might be, from the good background, good income, group. Financial access holders are better than non-financial access, but financial access is not a sufficient. Uh, it is really disturbing. Can you mute him? Yeah, thank you very much. So financial access reflects the better financial access of the people attending a greater number of working days in compared to non-access holders. So I am here discussing that those who are having financial access, they are working a lot because I am talking those vulnerable groups who are very poor. So financial access holders are better in position to non-access holders with respect to number of working days. Moreover, we find people who have financial access are doing more expenditure. The hypothetical finding shows that there is not existing any relationship between financial access or and income of slum dwellers. Financial access and type of remuneration are indifferent. Financial access and number of working days is indifferent. So therefore, these are the overall findings I have, explained it in them before that these people lacking minus 25% of their income to fulfill their expenditures. And in case of beggars, they are shortage of 38% of their income to fulfill their current expenditure. So from this model, the Manova model shows that most of the families are managing their budget themselves. People are taking financial help from informal sources and are far from formal banking system. The financial access has an insignificant effect on financial behavior, income, and expenditure. So this is the Manova model. Let me go to this. Uh, Policy recommendations of this book is that financial inclusion among the poor by be developed by emphasizing three key dimensions, which are the dimensions of this financial inclusion: penetration, availability, and usage. Moreover, the gap arose due to digitalization because of COVID-19. There is a increasing innovation, increasing access towards digital gadgets. Digitalization has increased because but these poor people are unable to use this digitalization in meaningful way towards financial inclusion. So they need to develop skills among the poor people so that they can use financial inclusion service easily. Access to financial inclusion schemes among poor people in India demonstrate to redevelop these policies which have guaranteed access. But at ground, they are, telling the different story. So therefore, we need to redefine these schemes, these programs, so that they can be demand oriented. They can fulfill the demands of these people. Financial inclusion is not the name of the bank account. It is a spectrum which should talk about socio-economic conditions of these vulnerable population. It should address at a time human development index. It should also talk about financial inclusion index. It should also, put light on multi-party index and health index. So financial inclusion is only possible to have host to these things. You cannot ask poor people that to have a bank account he is financially included. So to have his human development index, to have him health index, health performance, health health variables should be post developed. Then only we can say that his socio-economic conditions are better because of financial inclusion. To deliver financial inclusion services to the poor people, need of the need of home-based awareness is to fulfill their financial literacy related schemes, usage and benefits. We should aware them. Financial inclusion should also made to target as well develop sustainable behavior among these people. Formal banking institutions to develop more models to ensure safe and sustainable banking services. So sorry, I think I am not able to, move this. Yeah, this is the limitation because these populations are very, marginal. They don't have too much understanding about these, products and schemes. So sample size was too much, small to generalize the overall result. Some of the results may be spurious because they are, unaware about the, policies, and respondents may be, playing a bias role. One more problem of this study is that we do not have any official reports or data on these vulnerable populations in India. So now the important question as a researcher, as a PhD scholar, once they are finishing the study, then there arises a question: what is the how this study has added to the world of the scientific knowledge, and how it will be helpful for the policymakers and the general public? To answer this question, that this study is the first-hand investigation in India to check the excess of recent financial inclusion scheme, so that the study contribute to that ultra poor people does not need institutional participation for granted. They need products suitable for them as per their capacity. Banking participation of poor does not work until and unless we have policies and programs which guarantee to collapse, to finish the problem of poverty and make all-round development in all spheres of life among these vulnerable poor people. So
Okay.
by finishing the Chinese quote, let me finish in 1 minute. Giving a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So we should not provide poor people food and other this suitable products for granted. For example, in Corona we have given donations and all. So they need everyday food. So we should develop in them in skill so that they can feed themselves for a lifetime. So thank you very much. Destitute and dream of the financial inclusion. The poor city is poor not because they are lazy, but because they have access to capital. Milton Friedman. Questions are welcome. Thank you very much for this time.